Hi, Prosperity Team. This is Dr. Money coming to you from the Prosperity Corner of the universe, where silliness is sacred and nobody's perfect. I am your POP, your Professor of Prosperity, and I'm here so that all of our lives can pop with prosperity. I am excited tonight to have someone that actually interviewed me. I was so excited and thrilled that I got an email from this show that's on Unity Radio, and they said they had seen my Dr. Money videos and that they would like to interview me. And so the show is called Funniest Thing, and it's on Unity Radio. So I have the guest tonight who is a decorated U.S. Coast Guard veteran. And as I'm saying, he is Coast Guard. He is a co-host of the Unity Online podcast, Funniest Thing with Darrell and Ed. And he's author of the book, and you'll love this title, and that is, What If Godzilla Just Wanted a Hug? My goodness, I'd like to introduce to you Darrell Fusaro. Did I get it right, Darrell?
Almost, but don't feel bad.
No, it's Italian. It's Fusaro. See, I got it wrong to start with. Let's all go over that. Darrell
Fusaro.
So everybody can remember that. I almost have it right. Yes. So I know that you are a student of prosperity, you're a student of the law of attraction, you're the student of life, you're a student of love and compassion, and you've had so many experiences. You have a wild and funny show. And I just wondered if you had something in the line of prosperity or abundant living, a story that you might tell.
Yes, and you're right. There are so many stories, because when you really start applying, well, it's almost not applying. It's really if once you start cooperating with these principles that already exist, these seemingly miracles of prosperity, of good fortune, start to become a regular occurrence. But for a great specific example, for the sake of our show today, I was just thinking of the time my wife and I were living in New York, and we both, this is when we were I was in my early 30s or 30, and she's 7 years younger than I am, and she's an actress and comedian at that time. And I was really getting interested in making movies. So we both were really in love with the idea of coming to Hollywood, Los Angeles. And a series of when you start thinking of not how are we going to make it happen, because that always trips me up. Like, I have a great idea and I start thinking, okay, how am I going to make this happen? And the problem is, I found for myself, when I start thinking, how am I going to make it happen? Instead of, it almost invites thoughts of how it's not going to happen and how I have to overcome things I'm imagining that are going to be difficult. Well, I can't afford to do that. And thank God I learned that early on, and it's such a relief. And the truth is, I want to believe it works this way, because the other way just causes so much pain. And the way I'm talking about is, rather than trying to imagine how are we going to make it happen, instead asking ourselves, or myself, the question, what would it feel like if we were already working in Hollywood? Like that. And the feeling, I could feel my spirit, and my emotions, respond to that, and it feels good. So I just have to ride on that. And through a series of, I'm going to get to the good stuff, but we just ended up, from making that decision, we ended up in Los Angeles, Marina Del Rey to be specific. And that's a whole nother prosperity story, how that all rapidly came about.
Let me ask you something. When you said, how would it feel? So did you practice that on like a regular basis throughout the day, or did you have one specific time in which you practiced that? How did you work with that?
Well, it was such a delightful idea that it would enter my mind throughout the day. I could remember I was so enthralled with the idea, the feeling that idea would bring, that, I would get LA Magazine. We were living in New York. I would get excited, and you can't help when you look at these magazines to feel yourself in those scenarios. And at the time, we were ready to leave New York. We had been living there for a significant amount of time. And we still own property there. And we ended up in Marina Del Rey. And now the problem of getting a job started to surface. and
Oh, you really went without any plans. You just knew that you wanted
whenever I found out, whenever I step out boldly, things work best for me. Whenever I plan, unlike most, there's footwork and then there's planning. The problem with me, when I start planning for problems rather than what's the simple footwork? God, give me guidance.
All right.
And but as a result of living this way, it's not just willy-nilly, because I knew my budget. And the fact that I knew my budget, and with Lori's income, she got a waitressing job right away. I couldn't find work anywhere. We had some income from our property. We had a couple properties on the East Coast that we were able to rent out. We came out here, but I needed to meet the budget, $10 an hour. So when people were asking me, what job, well, what are you applying for? And I'd go, the job that pays $10 an hour. God's in charge. I put it in my God box. And all this time, though, I'm still in love. We just came to Los Angeles and we had never lived here. We'd never been here. So we're seeing people everywhere we go. And because we were so enamored with this idea of Hollywood, we'd be, I think that's someone famous over there. Everybody might have been someone famous because we were so in love with this idea of working in the industry. So I can't get a job. And isn't it funny? And whenever we're helping, being of service, that's usually when things fly in. But let me tell you, I'm applying for jobs, and I would keep it simple because you don't want to get overwhelmed. And I learned this early too from a mentor, just 2 applications a day. Or if there's an interview, that counts as the 2 applications, not 5 in one day, not scanning the website, because that drains your energy. That puts you in this lack mentality, this self-will, this fear-based problem solving. Just 2 a day. What do you do with the rest of the day? You do what's in front of you to do. Take a nap, go for a walk, drive into your favorite neighborhood and suck up the atmosphere of those homes, and imagine, working in the industry, living in one of these Hollywood homes. So I'm not getting any responses from the applications, but when we do our footwork over here, like a responsible person, it opens up the channel for God to throw something out of left field. And it always comes when we're helping, at least for me, when I'm helping someone else. I was helping this guy out, lived in the neighborhood, just friendly, unconditional help with some things I had experience in and he did not at the time. And out of the blue, on a Sunday night, we were talking. He goes, wait a minute, you're an artist, right? And I said, yeah. And he said, wow, because my mom is looking to hire an artist. And I started thinking, maybe it wasn't God's will for me to work in the industry. Maybe I came out here to, my art career is going to take off here. My ego is coming alive. And then I said, yeah, well, what is it? And he goes, she needs someone to paint neon tubes. And I'm like, what? I didn't say that because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God. I exist because I had a show just before I left New York with Andy Warhol and one other artist. Andy Warhol unfortunately passed away before the exhibit, but I was still a part of it. And I think, great, now I'm going to be painting neon tubes in a shed. Like I just imagine this awful scenario, like slave labor. But the words came out of my, how much does it pay? He said, $10 an hour. I said, can I start tomorrow? And he said, whoa. Let me talk to my mom. talks to his mom, and it's a little better than what I imagined. I was in a rented airplane hangar at Santa Monica Airport, and every day his mom would come in with these tiny hand-blown neon tubes that I had to carefully dip in neon, like big aluminum trays of different colored neon lacquer paint, so it's the lacquer aroma. And to dry them, I had to hang them on fishing line. I strewn all across. It was like a spider web of laundry lines with neon tubes drying, hanging off them in the room. And I was still enthusiastic because as I'm doing this, even though it has nothing related, it was a step closer because now I'm meeting my budget. And as I'm doing this, I got my little radio and I'm thinking about imagining, working on a set behind the scenes. I mean, I was in love with this idea. All the things I had seen growing up, those behind the scenes specials you'd see about Star Wars. And I'm imagining, I'm part of that. And every day I tried to do a little bit more than the day before. I was challenging myself with the job so I would feel good. She's coming in every day saying, I'm so grateful. No one else would have taken this much care, for this. And she was telling me, I've asked so many of my son's friends, no one wanted, they all snubbed their nose at $10 an hour. And I said, I'm loving it. Bum, 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 bum. A couple of months go by, she comes in with another crate, every day a crate of neon tubes. And I had to be very careful because they were delicate, they were hand blown, so I couldn't risk breaking them. And she goes, well, this is it. This is the last batch. And then she said, do you have anything else going on after this? And I said, no. She said, great. Would you like to stay on and work on the set? I went, what? The set? What do you mean the set? And she goes, well, these are all going to be used for the recreation of the Las Vegas Strip in miniature for the climax of a major motion picture. And I thought, wow, this stuff really works. Of course, I ended up working on the set, the movie, in case everyone's wondering. I mean, I'm not going to not tell you, it was the movie Con Air. So this is about 20 or more years ago. And I literally created the Hard Rock Hotel sign with all the neon. I mean, I installed all the neon. And then because the lighting was the subcontractor. And this is another thing, you got to be honest. Honesty gets the gold, because the tendency is to, if I say this, they might not think I'm right for the job. And what happened was, as we were winding down and the guy I was working for, the subcontractor doing the miniature lighting, was about to be, move on. I got the whole thing lit. And when you light up these miniature neon lights, all the transformers, it smells like fresh spring air. And I started getting nervous. Is this safe to be breathing? Right. So I called over the art director and I said, Mike, I'm here with all these transformers. It smells like fresh spring air. And I'm wondering if this is healthy, because usually things that smell really good to me aren't healthy for me.
Off-gassing, right?
Yeah, gasoline, cigar smoke, So he said, what are you asking me for? You're the electrical engineer. And I thought, oh my God, he thinks I'm an electrical engineer? But I had to tell him, it's so nice when the truth comes out. Because then I said, I'm not an electrical engineer. I said, I got hired on the street for $10 an hour to paint neon tubes. And he goes, that's great, Fusaro. He goes, listen, Disney wants to know, do you have anything going on after this? And I said, no. And he said, Disney wants to know what your rate is because they want you to stay on to supervise the stunt. And I said, supervise the stunt? I wasn't afraid to ask. I'm so grateful that by doing these practices, by, doing a morning routine, my prayer and meditation, it keeps me humble enough for God to work in my life instead of me getting in my own way. So I said, what's a stunt coordinator do? And he goes, don't worry, you walk around with a walkie-talkie, as long as nothing blows up and that, no one gets hurt, it's a piece of cake. So I said, all right, great. And that was that. And I, of course, did that, took that position. And he was right. It was a piece of cake. And I was like, that's just one example of many, 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 many examples, and that's just a very dramatic example for the sake of our talk. But there's always little examples of unexpected income and unexpected blessings, when we're expecting that. And that I like, because for a long time I thought, I shouldn't be expecting good things. I don't know where I got that. Like, that's not being humble. That's not being, a good little God lover. But that's garbage, because the word faith, the secular definition of faith, which could be religious or spiritual, is joyful expectancy.
Absolutely.
We're allowed to, not only are we allowed, we're actually encouraged. That's what have an expectant heart means. Although when you hear it in Sunday school, it doesn't feel like that's what it means. Have an expectant heart.
I want to go back and kind of go over what you had to say, because you started out with saying that you were delighted with the idea. And that is, it's such a powerful start. You were delighted with the idea. You experienced how it felt, which feelings, of course, is the language of creation. And then you manifested it, but you had a plan. You said you didn't really have a plan, but you had a plan because you knew what kind of finances you needed to make this happen.
Yes.
A lot of people just jump off the ship and they say, God's going to take care of me. And then it's like, wait a minute, you got to use some practical things.
Yes.
And then you did take action. You applied to different things. And even though the results didn't come directly from that, the energy is sent out, which attracts what you need to you. And then there was a cascade or a domino effect of that energy that you put into it that kept leading you to the next best thing, the next thing for you to do. So it's a wonderful story of the law of attraction and how we create things, and not to do it in an airy-fairy way, but to do it in more of a science. We call it the scientific method, like science of mind. They used to call it science of mind, and that is to make your plan, to carry it out, to be expectful, to be grateful, to be enthusiastic, and to have all those ingredients in the recipe of success. That is a wonderful story.
Well, thank you. I was very fortunate early on to have a very good mentor when I was introduced to all these ideas. I was 23 and I was in the Coast Guard at the time. And he was the guy who was like, well, do you know your budget? And I go, oh. And he got me in this habit of doing a budget. And even after I got out of the Coast Guard and I started working service jobs or, sales jobs, you understand what I'm about to share. Every day is not woohoo. So he taught me, he said, Darrell, every day after your shift, write down your tips. You know what your hourly wage is, but write down your tips. And that way I was able to maintain a healthy perspective that was optimistic, rather than on a bad day dealing with rotten people, in my perspective, whatever it was, thinking, I want to quit this job. I'm not making any money, just because the tips are low and I'm getting barked at or whatever. But then on the other days when the tips are going on, woohoo, I can start spending. This way, by writing down my tips every night, I would see the miracle of averages. And I would help other people who worked and they go, oh, this is terrible. We're not making any money. I go, no. I said, we're making money. I said, trust me. Do you write down your tips? Of course. No. That's why they're feeling and thinking this way, for the same reason I used to. And I said, trust me, write down your tips, they average out. And I could even give them the average because I knew the average for me. And I would say, it always averages for me about this much. And they go, really? I said, yeah, try it. And that's how I knew my budget was $10 an hour, because of all the, my wife's income, this income, that. Okay, we need this much divided by 40 hours a week. And you just, do the numbers, it's 40 hours a week times 4, and then you divide it by the amount of money you need for the month. Boom, you got your average. And if you want to add taxes to that, you just add another, 20 to whatever percent the tax bracket is, 15 to 33, wherever you are. And now you know how much you need to earn if your paycheck will be taxed. And that has saved my butt.
Yeah, a lot of people get in trouble because they don't pay the taxes, but I too am a great advocate of a budget. And I know that I kept a budget for many, many years, and I did it in sort of a creative way because
Yes.
I had a book, and I paid bills, and I did a prayer, I lit a candle.
Yes.
I checked off everything, and I had artwork that I did all around the financial stuff that I had on my page.
Yes.
And so I created like an art book of my finances.
Yes.
And I was able to pay off all my bills and eventually buy a car outright and eventually pay cash for a home. And so, yes, I'm really into the financial, making that financial budget. That's wonderful. Well, I think that we're running out of time here. So that was just a delightful story. Thank you so much. Let's join together with everyone, and we're going to take a deep breath. And as we breathe in our good. And as we exhale our intention that all other beings receive their good as well. I want to remember that our burdens have lifted, our cares are few, our joys are unlimited, and I love you. Have you got anything left to say, Darrell? Anything?
I love you too. Yes, I love you
Medium
too.
brilliant.
I love you too, and you deserve a donut.
All right. Now, what is the thing about the you deserve a donut?
I don't know. Doesn't it feel good to know that you deserve a donut?
Well, I do. Yes.
There you go.
It's a good way to end. Yes. Thank you so much. Namaste.